Hey, what's up? This is Joshua, daily video blog. It's very cold out today. My hands are already cold just from walking, so this might not be a super long one, but I found this very lovely decrepit building behind me. So, small wins, right? Okay, what was I thinking about? So I've been doing creative work for most of my adult life, to the point where if people asked what I was doing, it was always either going to art school or working as a designer or whatever it was. And I think any designer, any artist can relate to this thing where you say, oh, I'm a graphic designer, and people say, oh, I wish I could do that, I wish I was creative. Or you say you're going to art school and people go, I can't even draw a straight line. And what's funny is my self-deprecating line was always, me neither. Because I can't. I'm terrible. I was a terrible art school student, a terrible drawer, and I remain so to this day. But the other thing that was always crazy to me is when people said, oh, I wish I was creative. I never point out to them that there's never been a moment in my life where I felt creative. I have always just seen it as, this is the work that I do. It's always funny that designers and other sort of photographers and illustrators and art workers that we called creatives, but I think it's really just because our work is amorphous and spreads from discipline to discipline. Got a nice little tornado warning thing going on, or they're testing it, not an actual tornado, or I would be running. Our work stretches from discipline to discipline. We write, we design, I do strategy, I do illustration, I'm doing motion graphics at the point, I'll do photography and art direction, all of this stuff. And we only get called creatives because typically everybody that does it is doing this very kind of amorphous collection of activities. But on the other hand, maybe it's not something I discuss enough, but I never sit around and think like, oh man, I am so creative, or it was awesome that I made that, I am such a creative dude. It's always just been, this is the work that I do, these are the activities that I need to do. Oh my god, that's loud. And it's always just, this is the work that I do. I've never thought about it being creative work. I call it creative work because I understand that that's a descriptor that makes sense to people. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm gonna wait for this truck. In the grand scheme of things, it's just work. It's just work that I feel compelled to do. And I think the thing that worries about me when people say, oh, I could never be creative, or I wish I was creative, is that they're putting up a false barrier to doing something that they want to do. Because it's weird to say, I wish I was creative. Because, for example, no one ever, you don't ever meet a dentist and say, oh, I wish I was into teeth, because if you were, you'd be a dentist. Or you'd be I don't know, can you be a hobbyist dentist? I'm not sure. But it's just something that is only applies to a handful of disciplines, and it makes you wonder how many people have sort of priced themselves out of the market because they're afraid of being, that they're not creative enough. When most creative people would never refer to themselves as creative. It's just work. It's work that you do and that you care about. And I think at the same time, a thing to recognize is there are probably way more people that should be designers and artists who actually are creative, who for entirely different reasons have kept themselves out of these disciplines. And so creativity, lack of creativity, it's not a barrier towards working. You just decide, there is a thing I want to do. I would never be able to do anything if I had to stop and ascertain whether the work I was doing was creative or not. So, maybe you're generic and boring, but if you have a compulsion, you should make it anyway. Eventually, you'll be generic and boring and interesting. Or that's my theory. It is really loud and really cold, so I'm going to bounce. Thanks for watching.